Cool. So I'm here to talk to you about building precision tools for the imagination. To go into a little bit of what I mean by that, think about how you experience a concert, right? I've been to many of those, I've played many of those, and a simplified model might be that you experience this through your perception, and then you can recollect this experience later, and the kind of memories that you can form can have great personal and cultural significance. Now what we can do in the modern world is we can record these experiences, store and retrieve them, and then have those experiences again in the future. And now those recordings can attain this deep personal and cultural significance, right? We've seen this with music, with movies, with all kinds of media. At a high level, what I'm talking about is that recording technologies have done this remarkable thing. They've augmented our memory by turning our experiences into artifacts that we can share. Why am I talking about recording technologies? Well, recently we've seen some other great technologies emerge. But the thing about recording technologies that is really special is that we've built a stack of amazing precision tools and industries around this, like ubiquitous recorders, authoring tools, and sharing platforms, to enable us to really make the most out of this medium. But these recent tools, generative AI models, can do something a little bit different. They can generate text, they can generate images, sounds. They can turn our ideas directly into artifacts and not just our experiences that we have in the world. This is really powerful. But it raises this sort of canonical tension. If they're taking over some part of the creative process, then there's this tension between automation and augmentation as old as time that comes back. And bestseller after bestseller has made the case for augmentation as a way to expand our abilities. But how do we practically do this when they're actually occupying part of our space? So the key question I want to ask is, how do we design computational tools that meaningfully augment our creativity? And I argue that the answer to this is to build precision tools for human AI co-creation, much like we have built and are still building around this recorded media ecosystem. So I'll give you a case study of sound design, which is a field that I've worked in extensively, and that you experience through things like film, through electronic music, through advertising. Anybody here like at least one of these things? Yeah, probably most folks. So sound design is just starting to be touched by generative models. So now you can think of a sound like bird tweeting and do something that's absolutely crazy to me, thinking just back a few years. You can put this into a model as a prompt, say something like bird tweeting, and you can get a sound that sounds something like this. Or like this. So hopefully you can hear that. There's a little bit of birds tweeting in there. There's sort of something you can listen to, but it's not necessarily what you want in a creative context, right? It's noisy, it's relatively low quality, and the birds are kind of chirping all over the place. You don't have much control over that, and it's not this crisp, clear realization of a bird. Instead, what we often want in creative context for sound design is this idea of abstraction. Suzanne Chani, famous sound designer and musician, says, bubbles don't make sound, but you can create the concept of the sound and make it seem real. So Suzanne famously did this with the sound of a Coca-Cola can opening that became an iconic commercial. It goes way beyond what you can actually record from a Coke can, but synthetically creates the effect of a refreshing beverage.
Coca-Cola pop and pour.
I'll let you hear it also from Academy Award-winning sound designer Mark Mangini, who did Dune, Mad Max Fury Road, and many other things.
How did Pablo Picasso find a way to make a portrait out of squares and circles? Those abstract impressionists found ways to create art with objects that weren't what they were trying to express, but found a way to mold them to do just that. Sound designers, we think in abstract ways, and our brains have been trained over the years to find abstractions of what we want and create associations. This is how our sound designer brains think.
So this process of abstraction and association is really key to sound design. And how do we do this? What kind of tools do we use to do this? Historically, sound designers have relied on a tool called a modular synthesizer. Maybe some of you have heard of this, but essentially these are graphs of signal generating and processing components that you can plug into each other and tweak to create a wide variety of different sounds with incredibly precise control over what comes out. I'll let you hear a little bit about this in the music context. We looked at advertising and film, and this is Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones, two legendary musicians, talking about synthesizers in 1984, 40 years ago.
It's interesting because these instruments were designed for people to use, Right. It's just a tool, another tool. The way an axe is a tool, an axe can be a tool to cut wood to build a house, or it can be a tool to slaughter your neighbor. You know, the same thing. A synthesizer can be a tool to really hurt people's ears or interfere with their lives. It can be a tool to make a really nice sounding instrument that can really affect people in a positive way. And it all depends on the person that's using it. People blame machines very often for it's the machine's fault. How can it be the machine's fault? We have to plug it in. The machine doesn't do anything but sit there until we plug it in. It doesn't plug itself in. It doesn't program itself yet.
It's on the way, though.
It's on the way.
40 years later, we finally have synthesizers that program themselves. So this is work that I've done with my colleagues here, including Manuel Charip, who's here. Here we can take a sound like bird tweeting, an idea, pass it into the model that we built, and it'll program a synthesizer to create this sound. And instead of the sounds that you heard earlier, we get sounds that sound more like this. They're clean, there's no noise, there's no bandwidth limitations, they sound high quality, and they're really these abstract renditions of what a bird sounds like. So we've kind of built on this human paradigm of listening and tweaking and formulated as an optimization problem where we can try to maximize the similarity between the sound and your idea by tweaking these parameters of a synthesizer. And this gives us this precision tool because we get the benefits of a modular synthesizer, that it's tweakable, interpretable, and playable. We get the benefits of a generative model, that it's text-guided. These are much higher quality than existing generative models and also much faster. The other thing we can do that's, with this tool that's really unique is that we can interpolate between different kinds of sounds. And you can watch this happen, like going from bird to chainsaw to helicopter. Suddenly you have access to all of this in the sound design context. When people listen to these sounds, they can recognize them even if they're less certain because of this sort of abstract property, and they perceive these as much more artistically interpretive than existing generative AI models for sound generation. Another thing that's important about this is that these knobs of a modular synthesizer are a representation that you can work with as a human creator and that our machine learning model can work with as well. Collaboratively, you can build new sounds together. At a high level, we need to build better computational models, better interactive systems, and also think about what the optimal integration between humans and these machines looks like in order to encourage the most creative outcomes. So yeah, that's building precision tools with the imagination with AI.